Most of you aren't subscribed. Make sure to whack that subscribe button, as it helps out the channel. Without further ado, following a white-hair orphan on the brink of starvation who is frustratingly interrupted when he notices a body floating down a river. Hesitating at first, he does the right thing, diving in and rescuing the victim. Awakening, the survivor is disappointed having failed his suicide attempt. Having used up all his energy, as the white-hair boy's stomach growls, he's interrupted by the survivor's college, Kunikida. Introducing himself as Nakajima Atsushi, our survivor offers to buy him a meal introducing himself as Dazai Osamu. Scoffing down the delectable meal, Atsushi learns about the Armed Defense Agency, a group of individuals possessing supernatural powers, where Dazai and Kunikida both belong to. Additionally, Kunikida, after bickering with his colleague, Dazai, informs Atsushi of their reason for being in the area. The reason being that there has been a sighting of a tiger terrorizing the locals as of recently. Atsushi, acting suspiciously, is caught attempting to run off. Questioning Atsushi, Kunikida and Dazai learn that this so-called tiger has been following Atsushi around and it's because of him that the tiger is in this town. Dazai, scheming, passes a note to Kunikida offering Atsushi a reward if he cooperates with his plan. Changing to a warehouse, Dazai and Atsushi sit in darkness. Questioning Dazai's ability against a tiger, Dazai reassures Atsushi he is far stronger than he seems. Jealous of Dazai's confidence, Atsushi begins to despair about his situation. Alerting Atsushi, Dazai mentions the tiger is nearby. Now with the complete moon illuminating the warehouse, Dazai racks Atsushi's brain. Questioning the reason for Atsushi, an orphan, to be kicked out, along with the tiger and him both appearing in this town at the same time, and how this world is filled with supernatural. Within seconds, Atsushi begins transforming into a wild beast under the full moon. Pouncing at Dazai, Dazai moves out of the tiger's trajectory only to be cornered. Closing in on Dazai, the tiger is frozen in mid-air as Dazai collides with it. Revealing his ability, Dazai states his technique, no longer human, is able to negate any other person's ability with a single touch. Arriving on the scene, Kunikida confronts Dazai on his vague note earlier only to have other members of their agency arrive as backup. Coming to, Atsushi is in shock not only at his half-tiger hand but also because Dazai is asking him to join their agency. Waking up the next day, Atsushi is so thankful for having a place to sleep only to be called outside. Discovering Dazai in an oil bin, he questions Dazai's intentions. Having attempted another suicide, Dazai was mistaken when his attempt turned out to not be instant and instead a slow torture. Heading to the agency, Atsushi questions his decision to join the agency as he watches the comedic duo bicker. Interrupted, Kunikida informs everyone of an attack at the agency headquarters, where a bomber has taken a hostage and demands compensation. Deciding who should confront the attacker, Dazai and Kunikida play rock, paper, scissors. With Kunikida losing, he approaches the attacker. Attempting to reason with him, the attacker only gets more agitated, realizing Kunikida is part of the agency. Noting that Atsushi is a fresh face, Dazai sends Atsushi in to reason with the attacker. Using Atsushi's dreadful attempt at empathizing with the attacker, Kunikida uses his ability, Dopo Poet, to materialize a wire gun to disarm the control from the attacker. Having accomplished their goal, Dazai and Kunikida begin to argue only for the attacker to wrestle back control of the detonator. Having said his last vows, the attacker detonates. With Atsushi covering the bomb with his body, he crouches there in silence as he notices Atsushi, Kunikida and the attacker watching over him, noting nothing has happened. With the hostage tackling the attacker, they are revealed to be very close brother and sister, and all of this was set up to test Atsushi's personality. The agency's president reveals himself. They congratulate Atsushi having passed the test, welcoming him to the agency. Stopping at a bar, the attacker introduces himself as Tanizaka Junichiro and the hostage as his little sister Naomi, both being related by blood. Moving on, Tanizaka and Nomi are revealed to be students, Kunikida a former math teacher and Dazai as having an unknown past. They are then all called in for a job. Attempting to flirt with the client, Kunikida pulls Dazai away to have a stern chat. Chatting to the client, the gang learns about some shady dealing happening in alleyways. Warning Atsushi of the Port Mafia, a criminal organization, Kunikida sends Atsushi, Tanizaka and Naomi to where the client last saw the dealings occur. Facing a dead end, the client reveals to the gang that this was all a trap, stating that she's part of the port mafia. Gunning down Naomi, Tanizaka runs to her side where he is held at gunpoint. Enraged, Tanizaka activates his ability Light Snow. Disappearing Tanizaka appears behind the client, choking her only to be brought down by a summoner, Akutagawa, controlling a demon. Sending the demon to finish off Atsushi, Akutagawa is shocked to see Atsushi dodge below the demon only to appear behind him acquiring a gun. As Atsushi unloads the gun, Akutagawa sends his demon towards the bullet, devouring them all whilst taking off Atsushi's leg. Deciding the battle is over, Atsushi appears above Akutagawa, having transformed into the tiger. Dashing at Akutagawa, we see them exchange blows with the help of Tanizaka. Atsushi and Akutagawa both set up for a final. Stepping in, Dazai disables both of their abilities. Realizing Dazai is here, Akutagawa retreats, not before reminding Dazai of his past working for the port mafias. Waking up to the screams of Tanizaka, Atsushi is informed of a bounty on his head. With Kunikida attempting to hide his cool, we cut to the port mafia massacring factory workers. In the aftermath, Atsushi arrives at the scene. Witnessing the destruction the port mafia can inflict, he decides to leave the agency in fear of the agency members' safety. Cutting to the mafia members, we see they plan on attacking the agency on the same day. Bursting through, the members gun down the agency members. Returning to Atsushi's POV, we see him rush to the agency, after hearing an explosion. Upon entering the room, he is shocked to see the destroyed room with every single mafia member unconscious and each agency member nonchalant. As Atsushi helps the members clean up the rundown place, he notices a member, Rampo, not helping at all, and instead notices all members respecting him for having the ability to solve any case within an instant. Using this opportunity to learn, Atsushi accompanies Rampo to the scene of a crime. Introducing themselves to the officers at the scene, they're all distracted upon the discovery of Dazai once again attempting a suicide in the river nearby. Bragging about his intellect, Rampo decides to challenge a junior officer to solve the case. Activating his ultra deduction ability, Rampo reveals the killer to be the junior officer. With the senior investigator scoffing at Rampo's accusation, Rampo decides to ask for the junior detective's firearm to count the number of bullets, betting on the fact that there will not only be missing bullets but the victim will also have gunshots matching those of his gun. Out of desperation, the junior officer attempts to kill Rampo only to be restrained by Atsushi. Back at the police station, the junior officer admits to killing the victim out of It turns out he and the victim were lovers, but due to his shady past he had been forced to eliminate her. Heading back to the agency, Atsushi and Dazai chat. Dazai reveals that he had used his ability whilst Rampo used his ultra deduction, and since Dazai is able to nullify any and all abilities, it's revealed that Rampo is not gifted and he was able to solve the case out of pure intellectual deduction. Additionally, Dazai added that although some things were easy to deduce, such as the victim and the police office being lovers, or that the office knew something about the victim, due to his wording, Dazai admits that Rampo is leagues above him in terms of observation and reasoning, being able to gather huge amounts of information in mere seconds, almost to a point of him observing the case in real time. Atsushi, in awe, finally understands why everyone respects Rampo due to his giftless intelligence. A few days later, Dazai is found in a crazed state, having taken psychedelic mushrooms and not poisonous mushrooms. Moving on to a job, Dazai, Kunikida and Atsushi visit an informant, Taguchi Rokuzu. Retrieving photos of the victims in a murder investigation, they investigate a possible hideout of the murder. Taking a taxi, Kunikida reveals that the taxi driver also works for the agency to earn a little extra cash. Having driven some of the victims, they drop the team off at an abandoned hospital. Walking through, Kunikida stumbles upon a drowning victim, saving her, but Kunikida has no time to breathe as he's called by Dazai into a separate room. Entering the room, he notices a glass gas chamber of half-nude victims. Unable to save them, Dazai, Kunikida, Atsushi and the girl are able to escape the gas trap, returning to the agency. Having found out the victim is awake and well, the team begins insulting Kunikida's predetermined expectations for a love interest. Later that day, we see the three sitting with the same taxi driver. Having asked Kunikida's desired destination, he's shocked to be accused of being the murderer. When Dazai and Kunikida reveal how he's been getting away with the murders, by killing victims carefully as to not harm their organs and dressing up as them to spread misinformation on their whereabouts and time of death. The taxi driver finally confesses to being influenced by the mafia to make extra money by selling the victim's organs on the black market. Just then Akutagawa strikes using his demon, sending Atsushi and Dazai to chase after the taxi driver. Kunikida is able to injure Akutagawa, forcing him to retreat. After solving the case, Kunikida is informed of a possible bomb threat. Moving to a cafe, Dazai teases Kunikida on having a possible love interest for the female victim. Upon hearing back from Rampo, they head off to locate the bomb. Along the way to a possible site, they are told to change courses as it's impossible to defuse the bomb in person and instead to head elsewhere to the control center of said bomb. Meeting the culprits, Kunikida is bested when dueling against someone with the ability to toss Kunikida without touch. Ironically, Dazai is fighting off against a musclehead being bested in a battle of strength. Realizing each other's situations, they both switch places. Dazai, having negated the enemy's abilities, is able to knock out the ability user, and Kunikida was easily able to fight the musclehead. Having defused the bomb, Kunikida attends a funeral for the victims of the murder case, standing alongside the female survivor. Calling Kunikida, Dazai reveals that the mastermind behind the bomb had been found, and it's revealed to be the female survivor. Having made a point out of her actions, she's killed. The following day, Atsushi is forced to accompany an agency member, Dr. Yosano. Along the way, he notices a girl in a kimono walking past. Thinking nothing of it, he continues assisting Yosano. Ending the day, they take the train home, only for the train to be taken hostage by a port mafia member. Deciding to reclaim the train, the doctor and Atsushi split up. Following the doctor, we see her completely annihilated by the mafia member, Kaji Motohioru, with the ability to detonate bombs in the shape of lemons. Cutting to Atsushi, we see him encounter the same girl in the kimono, only for her to cut him down with her ability, Demon Snow, creating a samurai spirit. Moving back to the doctor, we see her body be completely blown up, unable to escape from such an explosion. Returning to the carriage, Kaji is struck in the face by the healed doctor. Remembering her face, he realizes her ability, Thou Shalt Not Die, is able to cure any physical injury a patient has as long as they are lethal, even her own. In the meantime, Atsushi has transformed part of his body to outmaneuver the young lady's ability. Realizing she has been rigged with a bomb vest, he reasons with her to hand over the detonator. Doing so, he attempts to get her out of the vest, but she pushes him away and falls out of the train, stating it's too late to save her. As she's falling, Atsushi dives after her. With enough time, he's able to remove her vest, breaking her fall as the vest explodes behind her. A completely fatigued Atsushi falls into the girl's lap. Having lured and trapped Dazai, we see Akutagawa torturing him, which explains Dazai's disappearance. Cutting to Atsushi, we see him showing the young girl around the city and showing her various food cuisines. Their little date is interrupted when Akutagawa interrupts them, stabbing Atsushi in the back and disappearing with him. Cutting back to Dazai, we see him greeted by an old friend, Nakahara Chua. Disgusted at meeting his old colleague, Dazai taunts into releasing him as they begin to. Back at the agency, we see they are panicked as they attempt to track down Atsushi. With the director having to bargain for Rampo's help, they locate Atsushi. Cutting to Atsushi, we see he has woken up only for him to be taken out of his container by Akutagawa. As Atsushi and Akutagawa begin to brawl, Atsushi transforms. Even still, he is completely outmatched, with Akutagawa continuously puncturing Atsushi. Akutagawa gets too overconfident, letting his guard down for Atsushi to land a single charged punch. Just in time, Kunikida arrives, escaping with them, leaving the unconscious Akutagawa to be captured. Hearing news of Akutagawa being captured, the port mafia set off to recapture him. Following Atsushi, we see he and an agency member, Miyazawa, being mugged during an errand. Cornered, Miyazawa is able to brutally manhandle all the attackers with his super strength ability. Meanwhile, back at the agency, the director has a conversation with Mr. Francis, attempting to purchase the agency only to be refused and ushered out. Later that day, members of the agency go missing. In the middle of the streets, we see a gentleman looking for someone he knows, only for Naomi to disappear from Atsushi and Tanizaka. Being brought to another dimension, Mr. Francis's employee, a young girl, reveals she's been holding people in her dimension, including agency members. With Tanizaka, Atsushi and an older gentleman standing up to her, the young girl uses her ability to restrain Tanizaka, taking him out of the fight. With Atsushi being cornered, the older gentleman gives Atsushi some wise advice. Inspired by Atsushi's transformation, able to evade the young girl's ability, he threatens to have them both be stuck in this dimension forever unless she releases everyone from this dimension. In mere seconds, everyone captured return to the real world. Having saved Tanizaka and Naomi, Atsushi thanks the older gentleman for the advice as he heads off with his. Later, it's revealed this older frail gentleman is the leader of the Port Mafia. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe, like and comment.